Hey everyone, check this out! We've got the Nubia Z60 Ultra straight out of 2024 and it's ZTE's first flagship killer of this year. Priced at just $680, this Chinese giant is offering us a smartphone with a super unique yet comfy design, a beastly Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 processor and a massive 6000 battery, the largest in its class. On paper, this thing sounds like the ultimate gadget, but is it really? To create a phone with minimal markup and maxed out specs, ZTE had to make some trade-offs. Plus, this baby is hitting the shelves in Western countries right off the bat. USA, UK, Europe, and that's a pretty rare move for a Chinese smartphone. Did the Chinese manage to slay a few flagships by creating such an affordable beast? We're gonna find it out today, but let's kick things off in true unboxing style. The Nubia Z60 Ultra comes in a surprisingly large box, but inside it's a pretty standard kit. You've got the phone itself, a clear protective case to show off its sleek design and hefty 80-watt charging brick, and a signature-ready USB cable, kinda like the ones from OnePlus. Alright folks, let's talk design, cause I'm totally digging it. The Nubia Z60 Ultra sports this super sharp straight edge with a top-notch aluminum build. And get this, it weighs a hefty 240 grams, making it the heaviest in its league. The back panel? It's got this textured made glass with a shiny eye-catching texture that just dazzles in the light. And guys, the camera module is huge, jutting out from the body. Each of the three camera packs optical stabilization, which is both a plus and a minus, but more on that later. Now the real standout in its design, the screen. We're talking almost uniformly thin bezels around the edges and no selfie camera hole inside. It's tucked under the display, which isn't a new tech, but sadly it hasn't improved since its debut in Samsung and other brands' phones. Honestly, taking photos or videos with this sensor is pretty much a no-go. So the Nubia Z60 Ultra isn't perfect, and here is why. First off, no wireless charging. And let me tell you, I am a huge fan of wireless charging. I've got them in my car, at home, in the studio, even in my power banks. Next up, no eSIM support. That's a bummer. I ditched physical SIM cards 2 years ago, so I actually had to dig up an old SIM for this. The big question before buying a gadget like this, what's up with the software and how long is ZTE gonna support this device? It runs on Android 14, which is cool. ZTE's OS, MyOS 14, looks super simple on the surface. No trills, no fuse. It feels like ZTE's hardware and design team were on point, but when it came to software and UI design, it's like they outsourced it and gave the developers way too little time. The software feels half-baked. It's like a mix of stock Android with some wonky fonts and icons that don't quite hit the mark. Let's dive into the settings of the Nubia Z60 Ultra. It's pretty bare bones, folks. There is nothing you won't find in any other smartphone from any other brand. We're talking Google services for the photo gallery, a basic voice recorder app with zero extra features. It's all streamlined, which might appeal to some, but in an era where services and AI are booming, this phone is just flexing its spec sheet. Now the display on this thing, it's impressive. A 6.4-inch screen, 120Hz, AMOLED, HDR10 Plus support, plus you've got screen customization and calibration options. There are even specific mode for nighttime use and reading, and with a max brightness of 1500 nits, it's more than adequate. The no selfie camera cutout screen looks absolutely stunning. So, on the body of the Nubia Z60 Ultra, besides the volume and power buttons, there is this extra customizable button. By default, it launched the camera in the street photography mode, but you can switch it up to activate the voice recorder or silent mode. It would be cool if this this button also worked as a shutter release during camera mode, but for some reason ZTE didn't include that, even though they could have taken a page from Sony's book, especially since they already borrowed the rectangular design. The Nubia Z60 Ultra boasts IP68 water and dust resistant, and yes, they even remembered the infrared port. Plus, this phone has a really nice haptic feedback, finally toned for different action in the system. Like when you adjust the volume, there is this pleasant increasing vibration response. Now, performance-wise, my unit has 12 GB of RAM, 256 GB of storage, and, as I mentioned, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. Honestly, in terms of system speed, there is no noticeable difference compared to, say, the Galaxy S23 Ultra with Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. The phone does heat up during intense gaming, but not as much as you'd expect. But here is the kicker. In heavy tasks and games, this processor chews through the battery fast. Like an hour of gaming can drain up to 35% of battery, and even 600 battery doesn't quite compensate. But in regular use, the phone easily lasts up to 2 days. Software performance on the Nubia Z60 Ultra has its hiccups. For instance, the camera fires up super fast, but actually taking a photo and processing it takes noticeably longer. Also, there are some glitches with the camera app. If you switch between photo and video modes, the screen refresh rate can drop to like 30 FPS, and this lag can stick around even when you go back to the home screen. It takes a bit before the phone gets back to its smooth 120 Hz. ZTE tried to stand out here, but it's not without issues. All three cameras modules support optical stabilization, and it's noticeable. The problem is this stabilization doesn't play well with the camera software. During video recording, the camera struggles to smooth out the footage, so you get these frequent jitters. Plus, the autofocus often misbehaves during video recording, constantly shifting focus between different objects. The camera modes on the Nubia Z60 Ultra are dynamic. The main camera switched between 18mm and 24mm. The second camera ranged from 35mm to 50mm, and the third camera from 85mm to 170mm. While shooting, it's pretty tricky to figure out when the optics are at work and when it's just digital zoom. The image processing algorithms kinda weird. The outlines around object often miss the mark, and the background scene processing frequently screws up the contrast. Sure, it's a matter of taste, but this camera is a league away from flagship A-brand smartphones. The camera interface itself is not exactly a looker. There are tons of artificial enhancement modes that basically draw an object into the frame. It feels like you're not using a camera app but some social media platform with a slew of extra masks and filters, very much in line with the quirky taste of Chinese smartphones. So the camera modules themselves on the Nubia Z60 Ultra actually deliver some pretty crisp details, and the cameras are decent. There is a standard 50 megapixel camera with an usual 35mm focal length and 64 megapixel periscopic camera and 50 megapixel ultra-wide camera. The main module is Sony IMX800. It's not the top of the line, but as other smartphones have shown, it's a solid camera module. Thanks to the processor capabilities, the main camera can shoot 4K video at 120 FPS with a max duration of 50 minutes. This means you can create some awesome high-res slow-motion videos. This smartphone's camera offers several stabilization modes. The standard mode allows 4K video at 60 frames per second, and the Super Stabilization mode does Full HD at 60 FPS, but it's honestly stable. Plus, this phone can record 8K video at 30 frames per second, again leveraging the processor capabilities. You guys have already seen the photo and video samples. Now, what do you think about the quality? Drop your thoughts in the comments, please. Charging speed of this smartphone with the 80-watt native charger is impressive. It takes just 35 minutes to fully charge, and you can get up to 70% in just 15 minutes. For a battery this size, that's an excellent performance. So who is this phone for? Personally, I find the design and screen of this device quite appealing. It's a pleasure to use, especially for typing out long text on the keyboard. It's got a fantastic display and great performance that will last for a couple of years. But the software, that's a different story. There are no signs that Nubia will keep up the times and improve its UI. The cameras are mixed bag. For the average user, they're more than sufficient. But it can't compete with giants like the iPhone, Pixel or Galaxy, especially with its 5th gen under-display selfie camera. That's a clear sign why other brands are hesitant to adopt it. If you're all about top specs for a minimal price, this phone is definitely for you. But remember, the era of just good specs is over. The market now is dominated by algorithms, services and AI that can squeeze the most out of even average hardware. And that's something the Nubia Z60 Ultra can't boast about. For me, this phone is like a cool aesthetic beast on steroids with its powerful hardware. It's like a sleek, powerful car with a manual transmission, no climate control and a basic multimedia system. But hey, this kind of approach resonates with many users. Guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share this video with your friends. You're helping the channel grow and enabling more reviews like this. Bye!